For nearly the past 2 decades, a unique space in gaming lay pretty much dormant, right? Haunted by the ghost of a franchise that dared to blend biological terror with tactical RPGs. This was pretty much a niche that was only carved out by Parasite Eve back on PlayStation 1 by Square Enix. Or at that time, they were Squaresoft. But being developed by them, the OG Parasite Eve in 1998 was an absolute phenomenon, a successful hybrid of two quite distinctive worlds, the claustrophobic dread, fixed camera angles, and resource scarcity of survival horror, crossed with deep character progression and strategic menu-driven combat of a Japanese RPG. Now, me reliving this, because I used to play it when I was a kid, but actually, I believe last year or so, I actually made a retrospective talking about the space was like back in the late 90s, right? And this being Square Enix's first horror RPG, this game definitely carved a path for a lot of things blending, and was definitely a skip. It was definitely something that wasn't really done, and they didn't feel afraid to do new things. But the franchise continuity was fractured right? After the 2010 release of the third birthday, which pretty much stripped away some of the RPG mechanics in favor of just pure action. A core segment of the fan base just felt alienated. This created quite an underserved market, a demand for the specific blend of action, horror, and role-playing that Square Enix had just abandoned, right? Any true successor would need to satisfy this craving for the original hybrid model. The foundation of that original terror wasn't just jump scares, it was a scientific body horror rooted in a novel by Hideaki Sina. Because one thing about Parasite Eve did not start as a video game. Theoretically, this was a book novel that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was turned into a movie, and then it was eventually adapted into the video game. And of course, this definitely takes into a whole new type of horror, because this was basically utilized as your main antagonist was known as the mitochondria Eve. Now, yes, of course, for all my peeps out there, you know, when you're in science class, you know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Well, this was the premise. This represented the awakened collective consciousness of the mitochondria, those cellular organelles that have lived in symbiosis with humanity for millennia, but now sought separation and want some form of dominance. The horrific consequence of this awakening was a massive, uncontrolled generation of ATP energy. Now, this energy caused catastrophic cellular decay, forcing many hosts to mutate into this grotesque, disfigured life forms, and the neo-mitochondrial creatures, or NMCs. The conflict was existential, a fight against a threat woven into the very fabric of human life. Mitochondria's Eve's ultimate goal was genuinely transhumanist, the eradication of mankind to theoretically birth a superior ultimate being capable of controlling its own DNA. Now, Parasite Eve, the very first one, was theoretically the best of it. It kind of lost its way when it came to the second game, and definitely got it by the time it got to the third game, but everybody will always remember the original Parasite Eve. Now, let's fast forward to late September 2025. You know, you're feeling the little bit of decades long void, and then all of a sudden this Chinese development team, Citruna, known for titles like Frontier Hunter, Urza's Wheel of Fortune, stepped forward and officially announced Parasite Mutant. This is slated for release next year in 2026 on PS5 and PC via Steam, and the game immediately confirmed its genre, which is going to be sci-fi horror RPG. Now, my God, the market response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Fans recognized the overt homage and quickly labeled this title being an obvious spiritual successor. The sentiment was overall clear. If the original owner wouldn't deliver, independent developers would be compelled to do it themselves. And Citruna has leaned into that lineage, openly marketing that Parasite Mutant is being a Parasite Eve inspired, utilizing that legacy as a crucial selling point. And my God, was it a selling point, because All of a sudden, I was on my phone, I was scrolling through X, or formerly known as Twitter, and I was just like, Parasite Mutant, that just sounds like Parasite Eve. And then as I looked at the original trailer, I'm like, there's no way we are getting a indie owned Parasite Eve. Like, it is one of my favorite RPGs for sure, and just the fact that we're getting that now, oh my god. But the proximity to a beloved IP required caution, because the name Parasite Mutant itself, criticized by some as generic, is likely a more calculated move to maintain legal separation from Square Enix, mitigating any potential intellectual property conflict while still signaling the game's mechanical intent. Because you don't want to be in a situation where, like how Nintendo is on everybody ass, putting BTA to everybody. Power, I'm looking at you. But the narrative centers on a new protagonist, Agent Nova, who is designated as a psionic agent. Now, the setting is the distant future, not New York, where Nova is dispatched to an isolated, abandoned island city overrun by a diverse array of horrifying mutants. The mission is uncover the horrifying secret of the universe, face a fate-changing event on the island, and the premise is isolating an empowered agent in a terrifying ruined location. This is the classic exploratory structure of survival horror. But with all that being said, we need to understand what does it mean to be a true successor. Parasite Mutant must nail the combat system. Now, when you're looking at the trailer, you can see it clear as day. This is Parasite Eve written all over it. The signature feature of the OG, right? Now, for some of you who have not played Parasite Eve, and if you haven't, go grab an emulator, go grab something, you gotta go play it. Or if you want to feel it, I will leave my link of the game that I covered in the entire retrospective in the link below, and as well as in the top right hand corner for you. But in Parasite Eve, the brilliance lay in the fusion of active time battle, or ATB gauge system. This is basically a free real-time movement. You can move a Brea around a wireframe combat spear, actively dodging incoming enemy attacks while also waiting for your ATB bar to fill. Only then you could pause the action, select the menu option, and attack or use of the special skill. Because when Square Enix was developing this, of course, we're told Square Enix. These are the same people who made the giant Final Fantasy. So how can we mix Final Fantasy and mix with real-time gameplay at the same time? And they came up with this mixture of the ATB, and of course this would be shown in future Final Fantasy games, and even Final Fantasy VII. But these special skills were powered by Parasite Energy, or for short, P energy, which included abilities like pyrokinesis, necrosis, healing. These powers required the expenditure of mitochondria points, were explicitly derived from Aya's own advanced mitochondria. The progression loop was dual, accumulating experience to level up your P energy, and then utilizing your bonus points in a deep weapon upgrade system to overall customize and transfer gun attributes. But Parasite Mutant doesn't simply copy that though. It modernized it with, now it's funny at this point, active time chains, or the ATC system. Now this integrates the classic ATB structure with a distinct 3-segment chain. Now this chain mechanic significantly raises the tactical involvement. Players must precisely time their input across the 3 segments, forcing them to weigh the immediate action against the strategic reward of holding out for a powerful chain release. Crucially though, this system confirms that players must still actively dodge enemy attacks while the gauge charges, being able to retain that dynamic skill-based evasion that defined Parasite Eve 1's combat. And you can see that in a trailer. You see the grid system, you see the moving around, you see the bar filling up, you see so many inspirations to Parasite Eve, and it makes me super excited. This innovation shows that Ice Citruna understood that pure replication might feel sluggish. The ATC system ensures the combat is dynamic and engaging enough for modern action RPG players while still honoring the ATB heritage. Furthermore, the game's progression loop is confirmed to utilize a classic equipment progression system. This is a deliberate nod to the beloved weapon tuning and customization mechanic from the OG, confirming a crucial dual progression loop, being technological customization alongside the development of the new psionic abilities. But while the mechanics are clear and quite clear successional roadmap, the narrative and thematic core marks a quite decisive divergence. In Parasite Eve, ISP energy was this biological accidental consequence of her mutation, a compatibility with the mitochondrial consciousness. Her struggle was inherently internal and biological. But Parasite Mutant shifts this foundation. Protagonist Nova is a psionic agent. Now, for some of you who were my sci-fi fanatics out there, you would know that psionics is a classic science fiction trope, defined as the application of engineering principles to psychic phenomena. This implies Nova's abilities are likely trained, engineered, or technologically granted, but not some evolutionary accident. This transition sacrifices unique scientific specificity of mitochondria for a more generalized sci-fi framework, a choice made necessary to create another legal distance from the original IP while also retaining that crucial gameplay function of supernatural energy-based abilities. Similarly, the enemies change, right? When you look at Parasite Eve's enemies, they were these visceral, cellular horrors that melted, combusted, and reflected biological decay. There's plenty of enemies in Parasite Eve where you just see that they're completely undergoing some change of some sort. But when you're looking at the trailer for Parasite Mutant, you can see these horrifying mutants, and you can see that there's a diverse array of them at that. By abandoning the strict mitochondria science, Citruna is free to explore a wider range of sci-fi horror creature designs. These could include technologically augmented monsters or entities born of experimental abominations, positioning the game more broadly within the sci-fi survival horror subgenre. But with a release of next year, Parasite Mutant is a calculated, passionate effort by developer Citruna, and its features confirm it is strategically positioned to be a highly successful mechanic and aesthetic spiritual successor. The commitment to the legacy is even visible in the art's direction. The game utilizes a semi-realistic anime art style with modern rendering, but in a crucial move that demonstrates their understanding of the veteran fanbase, the developers announced the inclusion of optional, retro and CTR filters. This feature serves as an explicit functional homage, allowing players to actively recreate that low fidelity sensory atmosphere of the late 1990s console experience. But the verdict is quite clear. The active time chain system modernizes the combat while also retaining a strategic depth, and the classic equipment progressions honors the original's RPG layer. The game's mechanical blueprint perfectly fulfills the demand for a genuine Parasite Eve revival. Now, thematic compromises were made, shifting the lore from specific biological horror to generalized psionic science fiction. But as long as the technological implementation of the ATC system delivers on its strategic promise, and the new psionic abilities functions as satisfying proxies for the beloved P energy, then Parasite Mutant is poised to inherit the mantle and finally fulfill the long-awaited legacy of this unique hybrid genre. It does seem like the age of the Neo mitochondria may be over, but the time of the mutants is just beginning. So let me know what you guys think about Parasite Mutant in the comment section below. And I also have a question for you guys. Have you played the original Parasite Eve? I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about this? Do you like this entire design and things that they're doing now? I would love to hear your comments in the section below. Also, subscribe to the channel because I will be covering this game day one launch. And if there's any more information or a demo comes out, I will be covering. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. Like the episode. As always, my Outcast, stay safe out there, okay? And as usual, it's been your host, KICTV, signing out. Peace.